Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a purely hypothetical, yet completely fascinating geopolitical threat assessment that looks ahead to the year 2050. It's called the Trident Fracture, and it imagines a future where the map of North America looks, well, radically different than it does today. Let's dive right in.
So here is the massive what-if we're exploring. What if the United States permanently fractured into three competing nations by 2050? The source material points out that an event like this wouldn't just rearrange some lines on a map. No, it would officially mark the end of the American experiment, completely shatter the global economic order, and instantly spark a highly volatile Cold War right here on the continent.
Here is our roadmap for the briefing. First, the three new nations. Second, the nuclear shell game. Third, the weaponized resource trap. Fourth, the death of the greenback. And finally, the new global balance.
Starting off with Section 1, the three new nations, a redrawn map.
Now, according to this projection, the continent wouldn't just shatter into random pieces. The split would logically follow existing supply chains and massive economic drivers. First up, you've got the Pacific Republic. This includes California up through Washington, plus Nevada and Hawaii. They're driven by Silicon Valley tech, agriculture, and entertainment, with a heavy geopolitical focus on East Asia. Next, there's the Atlantic Federation, inheriting Wall Street, global finance, and legacy manufacturing, heavily aligned with the EU. And finally, the Allied Heartland, taking the South, the Great Plains, the Mountain West, and Texas. They run on massive energy grids and heavy logistics, and they are fiercely independent. So we're looking at three vastly different nations, all born from one.
Moving right along to Section 2, the nuclear shell game, dividing the triad.
This brings us to a frankly terrifying logistical crisis. How on earth do you carve up the world's most integrated doomsday system? Well, geography basically dictates the division. The Allied heartland instantly becomes a massive nuclear power simply because they physically inherit the land-based ICBMs buried deep in silos across states like Montana, Wyoming, and North Dakota. Meanwhile, the Pacific Republic and the Atlantic Federation inherit a totally different kind of deterrence, the ballistic missile submarine fleets stationed at their coastal naval bases.
Because of this incredibly uneven split, North America transforms literally overnight. We're talking about a tense, tripolar nuclear standoff. You no longer have one unified defense system. Instead, you've got three separate, highly advanced command networks sitting right next to each other. The result? Absolute paranoia, with three independent military apparatuses nervously watching each other's borders 24/7.
Which leads us to Section 3, the weaponized resource trap, tense interdependence.
You see, military might isn't the only leverage here. Despite becoming independent, sovereign nations, these three states remain completely trapped by their shared legacy infrastructure. Think about the heartland's physical leverage. They essentially control the continent's breadbasket and the primary energy grids. In a diplomatic dispute, they have the physical power to weaponize food exports and oil pipelines. They literally possess the capability to freeze or starve the coastal nations into submission.
But the coasts, they are far from defenseless. They hold the keys to the digital and financial architecture of the world. The Atlantic Federation could completely lock the heartland out of international banking networks. And the Pacific Republic, they control the underlying architecture of the modern world. We're talking cloud computing, proprietary software ecosystems, and advanced microchips. So it's physical starvation versus a devastating digital and financial lockout.
This creates a truly terrifying state of weaponized interdependence. The source material notes that a simple, everyday dispute, say an argument over an interstate shipping route or water rights from the Colorado River, could rapidly spiral out of control. It wouldn't just be politicians arguing anymore. We're talking about something that could trigger mutually assured economic destruction and literally shut down the entire continent's infrastructure.
Let's look at the global fallout in Section 4, the death of the greenback, global currency shock.
So, the collapse of the federal government triggers the immediate chaotic death of the US dollar as the world's reserve currency. Here is how it plays out. First, international central banks panic and rush to dump their dollar assets. This triggers a historic global credit crunch. A massive vacuum opens up, and currencies like the euro, the Chinese yuan, and even decentralized crypto networks rush in to fill it. Deprived of cheap credit, the new American nations face immediate hyperinflation and have to scramble to issue their own local currencies.
On a micro level, the financial integration of the entire continent is completely erased. You'd see the rise of the Pacific dollar, the Atlantic Federation's Fed note, and the Allied Heartland's Texas sovereign.
And this wouldn't just be new names for the same money. Each one would be uniquely pegged to radically different basket commodities, based on those distinct regional economic engines we talked about earlier.
And finally, Section 5, the new Global Balance 2050 and beyond. So, what does a fractured North America actually mean for the rest of the world? Well, first, there's the stark physical reality. The open borders that defined the continent for centuries would be completely gone. Imagine driving across the country and encountering strict passport control checkpoints, heavy custom tariffs, and heavily patrolled border walls erected right along old state lines. The fracture becomes a physical, inescapable reality for everyday people.
The source assessment puts it incredibly starkly, stating, by 2050, the former United States would mirror the geopolitical friction of 19th century Europe. Humanity's dominant superpower is replaced by 3 highly competitive regional powers. This effectively ends Western hegemony and gives rise to a truly multipolar world led by competing empires across Eurasia. Which leaves us with this provocative final question. In a truly multipolar world, just how fragile is the concept of a superpower? It really forces us to look completely differently at the geopolitical systems we just take for granted today. Keep questioning the structures around us. Thanks for diving into this explainer with me, and we'll see you in the next one.